falls, whether God's endorsing this candidate or this king or this particular lord or duke or whatever it might be, history rolls on, but the gospel remains and continues.
That's right. Now, we're going to segue to the next story that has a lot to do with the gospel and the end of the age and the second coming of Jesus Christ, but it's also very up front and relevant to this very day. Roman Catholic Archbishop Vigano has published another letter to President Trump. And this one, I think this one is stronger than the other ones that have come out this year.
Now,
we have the whole letter. Yes. Doc, go ahead. We'll start reading through it.
So we've got this letter. This is kind of a follow-up to a letter that the Archbishop had sent to President Trump earlier this year. Very strong letter warning him about the deep state and the deep church that was working to try to interfere with U.S. policies and the presidency of Donald Trump.
So, Doc, what's the underlying theme of this letter?
Basically, at the heart of it is Archbishop Vigano. It sounds like he watches True News every day. He's trying to get across to President Trump and anyone else that will read this letter and listen to him that there is a global conspiracy at work, a New World Order conspiracy at work, seeking to take us into what's called the Great Reset. That Great Reset, the idea that everything is going to be reset here, economies, nations, maybe even borders. Should we just start reading some of this, Rick?
Yeah, start at the first paragraph.
All right, so, and this is Archbishop Vigano writing to the President, open letter to the President of the United States of America.
Sunday, October 25th.
Right. Allow me to address you at this hour in which the fate of the whole world is being threatened by a global conspiracy against God and humanity. I write to you as an archbishop, as a successor of the apostles, as the former apostolic nuncio or ambassador to the United States of America. I am writing to you in the midst of the silence of both civil and religious authorities. May you accept these words of mine as the voice of one crying out in the desert. As I said when I wrote my letter to you in June, this historical moment sees the forces of evil aligned in a battle without quarter against the forces of good. Forces of evil that appear powerful and organized as they oppose the children of light, who are disoriented and disorganized, abandoned by their temporal and spiritual leaders. Daily we sense the attacks multiplying of those who want to destroy the very basis of society, the natural family, respect for human life, love of country, freedom of education and business. We see heads of nations and religious leaders pandering to the suicide of Western culture and its Christian soul, while the fundamental rights of citizens and believers are denied in the name of a health emergency that is revealing itself more and more fully as instrumental to the establishment of an inhumane, faceless tyranny. A global plan called the Great Reset is underway, and so that's his first reference to that. Its architect is a global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. In several nations, this plan has already been approved and financed. In others, it is still in an early stage. Behind the world leaders who are the accomplices and executors of this infernal project, there are unscrupulous characters who finance the World Economic Forum and Event 201, promoting their agenda.
Okay, that's page one. This is a 4-page letter. So I want to hold up to you. This is the book, COVID-19, The Great Reset. All right, I'll hold over this way so I can hold a little bit higher. Klaus Schwab.
Now, who is Klaus Schwab, Rick?
The founder and the president of the World Economic Forum. And so most of you know that Edward, Doc, and I were at World Economic Forum. Matt Scow was with us, and we were there at the beginning of the year. That was our second one that we attended at the invitation of the White House, which drove a lot of people crazy, including the New York Times and CBN and the Washington Post, and it's just about all of Washington and New York went berserk because True News was at the World Economic Forum. This was amazing. This book came out in the summer, early fall. I've had this thing for months. I know what it takes to write a book.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time.
At least a year.
It takes a lot of time to write a book and get it published. But Mr. Schwab had the COVID-19, the Great Reset. He had it written and edited and come running off the printing presses and, into the bookstores and at Amazon. Well, it couldn't be in the bookstores because everything's shut down, so it was at Amazon. So it's almost like he knew this was coming.
Right.
That would be conspiratorial.
It would be, but some conspiracies are true, Rick.
So now, looking back, Doc and Everett and I are saying, well, maybe there were meetings going on in Davos that were not on the official agenda. Maybe there was a second layer of meetings. Obviously there were. We're being facetious about this. We know that those kind of meetings take place. But they knew that there was something coming in 2020. In fact, we've told this many times that the CEO of Huawei was coughing all over Davos. We got out of there as fast as we could to get away from the Chinese delegation because we knew about coronavirus in February. We knew about it in January, and we were telling people, if you go back and look at our videos from Davos in February, we were talking about coronavirus.
Yes. Right.
And the Chinese were in Davos coughing on people.
In fact, they had the largest delegation in Davos. The Chinese
so if you wanted to spread coronavirus at a major world event, Davos was the place to go. But the point is the book, The Great Reset. The globalists have a plan, and Archbishop Vigano names it in this letter to President Trump, and he's telling President Trump, the globalists have launched the Great Reset.
In fact, they're advertising it. The cover of Time magazine right now, Rick, talks about, guess what? The Great Reset. Right on the cover of Time magazine right now. And so
it's like Dark Winter, Great Reset.
And they all go together. So
and marketing tyranny.
Yes. All right, let's go with page 2.
So the page 2 of the letter begins, the purpose of the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship, aiming at the imposition of liberticidal measures, hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. The price of these concessions from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, will be the renunciation of private property and adherence to a program of vaccination against COVID-19 and COVID-21. That's the first reference I've seen of that. Promoted by Bill Gates with the collaboration of the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the prompters of the Great Reset and the promoters of the Great Reset, the imposition of the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID with the consequent contact tracing of all the population of the entire world. Those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be confiscated. Mr. President, I imagine that you are already aware that in some countries, the Great Reset will be activated between the end of this year and the first trimester of 2021. For this purpose, further lockdowns are planned, which will be officially justified by a supposed second and third wave of the pandemic. You are well aware of the means that have been deployed to sow panic and legitimize draconian limitations on individual liberties, artfully provoking a worldwide economic crisis. In the intentions of its architects, this crisis will serve to make the recourse of nations to the Great Reset irreversible, thereby giving the final blow to a world whose existence and very memory they want to completely cancel. But this world, Mr. President, includes people, affections, institutions, faith, culture, traditions, and ideals. People and values that do not act like automatons, who do not obey like machines, because they are endowed with a soul and a heart, because they are tied together by a spiritual bond that draws its strength from above, from that God that our adversaries want to challenge, just as Lucifer did at the beginning of time with his non servum. Many people, as we all know, are annoyed by this reference to the clash between good and evil and the use of apocalyptic overtones, which, according to them, exasperates spirits and sharpens divisions. It is not surprising that the enemy is angered at being discovered just when he believes he has reached the citadel he seeks to conquer undisturbed. What is surprising, however, is that there is no one to sound the alarm. The reaction of the deep state to those who denounce its plan is broken and incoherent, but understandable. Just when the complicity of the mainstream media had succeeded in making the transition to the New World Order almost painless and unnoticed, all sorts of deceptions and scandals and crimes are coming to light.
I'll pick it up from here, Edward. Until a few months ago, it was easy to smear many as conspiracy theorists, those who denounce these terrible plans, which we now see are being carried out down to the smallest detail. No one, up until last February, would ever have thought that in all our cities, citizens would be arrested simply for wanting to walk down the street, to breathe, to want to keep their businesses open, to want to go to church on Sunday. Yet now it is happening all over the world, even in picture postcard Italy, that many Americans consider to be a small, enchanted country with its ancient monuments, its churches, its charming cities, its characteristic villages. And while the politicians are barricaded inside their palaces, promulgating decrees like Persian satraps, businesses are failing, shops are closing, and people are prevented from living, traveling, working, and praying. The disastrous psychological consequences of this operation are already being seen, beginning with the suicides of desperate entrepreneurs and of our children, segregated from friends and classmates, told to follow their classes while sitting at home alone in front of a computer. In sacred scripture, St. Paul speaks to us of the one who opposes the manifestation of the mystery of iniquity, the kathekon. This is found in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 6 through 7. In the religious sphere, this obstacle to evil is the church, and in particular, the papacy. In the political sphere, it is those who impede the establishment of the New World Order. As is now clear, the one who occupies the chair of Peter has betrayed his role from the very beginning in order to defend and promote the globalist ideology supporting the agenda of the deep church who chose him from its ranks. Mr. President, you have clearly stated that you want to defend the nation, one nation under God, fundamental liberties, and non-negotiable values that are denied and fought against today. It is you, dear President, who are the one that opposes the deep state, the final assault of the children of darkness. And for this reason, it is necessary that all people of good will be persuaded of the epochal importance of the imminent election, not so much for the sake of this or that particular political program, but because of the general inspiration of your action that best embodies, in this particular historical context, that world, our world, which they want to cancel by means of the lockdown. Your adversary is also our adversary. It is the enemy of the human race, he who is a murderer from the beginning. Around you are gathered with faith and courage those who consider you the final garrison against the world dictatorship. The alternative is to vote for a person who is manipulated by the deep state, gravely compromised by scandals and corruption, who will do to the United States what Jorge Maria Bergoglio is doing to the church, Prime Minister Conte to Italy, President Macron is doing to France, Prime Minister Sanchez doing to Spain, and so on. The blackmail nature of Joe Biden, just like that of the prelates of the Vatican's magic circle, those are his words, will expose him to be used unscrupulously, allowing illegitimate powers to interfere in both domestic politics as well as international balances. It is obvious that those who manipulate him already have someone worse than him ready, with whom they will replace him as soon as the opportunity rises.
Wow. Doc.
Like I said, it's like he watches True News.
Before we go to the next page, Archbishop Vigano accused Pope Francis of treason against Apostle Peter.
Yes.
Do you understand what he accused him? He accused Pope Francis of treason against the authority of Apostle Peter. He said, as is now clear, the one who occupies the chair of Peter has betrayed his role from the very beginning in order to defend and promote the globalist ideology supporting the agenda of the deep church, who chose him from its ranks.
Yes.
Well, what ranks did Pope Francis come from?
The Jesuits.
The Jesuits. And if you get to the Jesuits, you're now talking Freemasonry. If you're talking Freemasonry, you're talking about the Zionists. If you're talking about the Zionists, you're talking about Kabbalah. I mean, it's all one group.
And he made a
Satan's got different denominations, all right?
And he made a mention of magic, Kabbalah magic. Actually, there was a comparison between the Vatican's, quote, magic circle and the Joe Biden treason sex scandal here in America.
Look at this. The blackmailable nature of Joe Biden, just like that of the prelates of the Vatican's magic circle, will expose him to be used unscrupulously, allowing illegitimate powers to interfere in both domestic politics as well as international balances. He's connecting Joe Biden to the Vatican, what he called magic circles. What does he know?
I suspect he knows about many of the scandals inside the Catholic Church.
Pedophiles?
Yes.
To me, I think he's alluding to satanic pedophile rings.
That connects both of them that way, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, okay, well, guys, go ahead with the rest of the letter.
So I'll finish out the fourth page here. And yet, in the midst of this bleak picture, this is Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, this apparently unstoppable advance of the invisible enemy, an element of hope emerges. The adversary does not know how to love, and it does not understand that it is not enough to assure a universal income or to cancel mortgages in order to subjugate the masses and convince them to be branded like cattle. This people, which for too long has endured the abuses of hateful and tyrannical power, is rediscovering that it has a soul. It is understanding that it is not willing to exchange its freedom for the homogenization and cancellation of its identity. And it's beginning to understand the value of familial and societal ties, of the bonds of faith and culture that unite honest people. This great reset is destined to fail because those who planned it do not understand that there are still people ready to take to the streets to defend their rights, to protect their loved ones, to give a future to their children and grandchildren. The leveling inhumanity of the globalist project will shatter miserably in the face of the firm and courageous opposition of the children of the light. The enemy has Satan on its side, he who only knows how to hate. But on our side, we have the Lord Almighty, the God of armies arrayed for battle, and the most holy Virgin who will crush the head of the ancient servant. If God is for us, who can be against us? Referencing Romans chapter 8, verse 31. Mr. President, you are well aware that in this crucial hour, the United States of America is considered the defending wall against which the war declared by the advocates of globalism has been unleashed. Place your trust in the Lord, strengthened by the words of the Apostle Paul, I can do all things in him who strengthens me. To be an instrument of divine providence is a great responsibility for which you will certainly receive all the graces of state that you need, since they are being fervently implored for you by many people who support you with their prayers. With this heavenly hope and the assurance of my prayer for you, for the First Lady, and for your collaborators, with all my heart I send you my blessing. God bless the United States of America. Carlo Maria Vigano.
The Archbishop sent a letter to the President of the United States telling him there is a global satanic conspiracy underway.
Yes.
To enslave the entire planet.
And in this letter today, he connects it to the current candidate for President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Yes. And the magic circles of the Vatican, which I think will lead us to the pedophile rings, satanic pedophile rings. Oh, the news media hates when anybody talks about satanic pedophile rings. Oh, that will generate articles from the leftist newspapers. They'll talk about conspiracy theories. Why do the people on the right, why are they obsessed with imaginary satanic pedophile rings?
Because they're not imaginary. They exist. They have existed through history, and they exist now.
Doc, did I understand what the Archbishop said? Was he calling for revolt in the streets?
I don't know if he was calling for it, but he says there's going to be a revolt because there will be people of faith, people, the children of light, who will not put up with this.
Well, I think he's saying we've reached a stage. It's fight or surrender. That's where we're at. The satanic globalists they've got the pedal to the metal right now. They're going for it, folks. We're actually seeing it happen in real time. Over 22 years of doing True News, we have talked about a new world order, and we've pointed out there has been a new world order since World War II, since post-World War II. But this is a newer new world order. And for 22 years, we've talked about the plan and the people behind the plan in the history of it. But what we are witnessing in 2020 is an all-out global frontal assault by the globalists to shove the entire human population face down into the dirt and say, surrender, we're in control. That's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, and then they want to crush our spirit because their sins are being revealed. You think about this. You mentioned, why does the news media get so mad? They get so angry. They do all those hit pieces when we talk about a elite child sex ring. Well, look, there are people in the media that are part of these rings. Remember Peter Bright, Dr. Pizza of Ars Technica? They act as if we have no memory.
The reporter.
The reporter who was, again, charged. And he went to a jury trial because he was soliciting sex with 7- and 9-year-olds. Okay, that's not the only case. The Epstein scandal.
Why is just Lynn Maxwell in a federal jail?
If it's just a theory. If it's just
a conspiracy theory. Well, then the prosecutors believe in conspiracy theories. Yes, she conspired to do a crime.
Yes.
People are in prison all the time for conspiring to commit crimes.
Another thing Archbishop Vigano brought out in his letter in saying that most of the world is going to be tempted to give in to this new world order. Mm-hmm. They're going to be tempted with the promise of a universal income.
Cancellation of debts.
Cancellation. Remember the jubilee everybody wants? Everybody wants a global jubilee, right? You don't want a global jubilee. I'm telling you, you don't want a global jubilee.
But again, Doc, all right, this program, True News, in 2008, we told our audience there's coming a global jubilee. I can go back and get the archive and play it for you. It was at the height of the banking crisis.
Right.
And I said on True News, this thing is going to continue until there will be a global jubilee and all debts will be canceled.
Right.
The Archbishop just referenced the cancellation of mortgages.
Cancellation of all debt.
And free money, free income for everybody.
Universal basic income.
Which is, we've watched it happen this year. I mean, last year we're saying, can you believe that these people are talking about something so ludicrous, giving everybody an annual income? And then in 2020,
they
actually started testing it.
Right.
I mean, that stimulus check you got, everyone watching this program, if you got money in the mail from the government, that is a form of a universal basic income.
I want to get back to something else the Archbishop said, and I think this is the second, third page, where it begins, it says at the top of the page, the purpose of the Great Reset, right? So he says in here, the price of these concessions from the International Monetary Fund will be the renunciation of private property.
Yes, I'm glad you
and
noticed.
adherence to a program of vaccination against COVID. And he said against COVID-19 and COVID-21. As in Agenda 21? What's COVID-21?
Well, since it's put next to COVID-19, it really looks like they're talking about a second virus, something separate than COVID-19.
So there's another virus coming that's going to be worse than COVID-19.
A new Frankenvirus released across the world.
So it says, promoted by Bill Gates with the collaboration of the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond, and let's just stop there. If you've never done any historical research on some of the big pharmacy companies, you should do that. You should learn about their Nazi history and how they produced poisonous gases and other products that Adolf Hitler used in World War II. And some of those companies are still very active today.
And very profitable.
And very profitable. So he says, beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the promoters of the Great Reset, the imposition of the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world. Those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be confiscated. Then, if that didn't get your attention, he tells President Trump, Mr. President, I imagine that you are already aware that in some countries the Great Reset will be activated between the end of this year and the first trimester of 2021. For this purpose, further lockdowns are planned, which will be officially justified by a supposed second and third wave of the pandemic. Now, in his previous letter, he said that his home country of Italy had been chosen to be a guinea pig of the globalists, that they were testing. They were rolling out components of this global takedown plan, the Great Reset, and that they were using the Italian population to test things. Well, which country got hit the hardest earlier this year? Italy.
They had the military taking bodies and caskets down the street.
Convoys.
Yeah. They had entire towns locked down, even riots outside jails. Remember back to that footage. I found something interesting on the COVID-21, by the way. The Los Angeles Times republished an article from the Financial Times on August 6, 2020, and there's a movie that was produced called COVID-21 Lethal Virus. Now, this is a low-budget movie. It was enough for the Financial Times to mention and the Los Angeles Times to reproduce. This is the front cover for it. In the description of this, there is a new outbreak of a zoonotic disease. They called it COVID-21. And this led to rapid globalization. And part of this, too, you had a population that turned into just a zombie-like state, a civil revolution. Again, this low-budget movie was produced over the summer, really from the beginning of the year, when this pandemic began, and will be releasing soon. But it envisioned next year there being a release of a new coronavirus. Again, it's very odd because there was a mention in Vigano's letter of not just COVID-19, but of COVID-21.
Well, and I don't know if you guys recall who Michael Bay is. Michael Bay, he made all the Transformer movies, right?
Yes.
Okay. And normally his movies have lots of explosions in it and everything like that. He has a new movie coming out called Songbird. And in this particular movie, he is forecasting a pandemic of a virus called COVID-23.
COVID-23?
Right, and this is a major big budget movie that's going to be coming out here. In fact, it just so happens that the trailer came out this week, and so.
And we have the trailer?
Not yet, but I'm going to try to get it for you here real quick.
As we're waiting on the trailer, Rick, you were saying over this year that coronavirus will never go away. That there'll be a coronavirus lockdown, a pandemic, maybe for the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. We're never going to leave this state because, one, the elite love this. Two, it looks like they had a plan all along to prosper during it. But three, we don't even know what COVID is. I mean, the virus itself, it's like terrorism. Someone gets the sniffle, someone gets the cough, someone dies. You get to immediately say, oh, look, it's COVID.
Yes, and that's why this winter, that's why Joe Biden is saying we're going into a dark winter, because every sniffle, every cough, every fever will be classified as COVID. And by the time you get to January, February, you'll think the whole world is infected. You'll have to lock down everything because they're going to classify every sniffle as COVID-19.
I was shocked the other day when I read from the CDC's own website that they just don't have the resources to count all the flu cases this year, so they're just not going to count them this year. What? You're not going to count the flu cases? You're not going to count them?
No, they're not.
No, they had already decided they're not going to.
They are going to count them.
They're going to count them as COVID.
COVID. I don't know if you've noticed. I've seen it in the past week. A flurry of articles stating that wearing masks will never go away. It's going to become normal, the new normal. That people should stop thinking that any day the mask mandates are going to end. In fact, the mask mandates are going to be codified into law, that it's going to be a requirement that you always wear a mask.
Well, there's a certain irony in that, Rick, because the people who are coming out now to promote that mask mandate for life, well, really, their tyranny is being unmasked. They're coming out. They're taking their mask of peace, a mask of innocence off, and right there, you have a tyrant who's been there the entire time.
That's an interesting idea, because the tyrants are making the general population wear a mask, but their action to make people wear masks is removing their mask.
Yeah, that's it. So,
and we're like, oh.
You're one of them.
Governor Whitmer, you're one of them. Gavin Newsom, you're one of them. Governor DeWine of Ohio, you're one of them. And they're not just one party. They're in both parties.
Right. Rick, I don't know if you still want to see that trailer or not for Songbird.
Sure, why not?
The premise of it is that the story is 4 years into the quarantine, the virus has changed.
4 years.
And so have we. And so it's set 4 years in the future. COVID-23 virus has mutated and the world is in its 4th year of lockdown. Infected Americans are ripped from their homes and forced into quarantine camps known as Q zones, from which there is Q zones from which there is no escape, as a few brave souls fight back against the forces of oppression. Right. Here's Michael Bay's new film that he has produced within the pandemic world that we're in now, forecasting 4 years in the future. Watch this.
When is this supposed to come out?
Here's very.
I think it had a Hunter Biden scene in there.
Yeah.
So, Hunter's in the movie. All right. Hey, the World Economic Forum They produced a video called The Great Reset. In fact, just last month, we're at almost, November now. But in September, Klaus Schwab held a virtual conference.
Yes, a mini conference, a mini version of Davos conference.
So called The Great Reset, and this is their promo video that they were circulating to get people to participate in the Great Reset virtual conference. Hey, we just were told here while we were watching The Great Reset that the previous video, which was Michael Bay's movie, what's it called? Songbird. So our control technicians were telling us there was no audio. We heard the audio sitting here. We're watching sitting right here, and we had audio, but we understand you didn't have audio. So I don't know how that happened. How could we have audio here, but the audio didn't go out?
Well, depending on which platform you're watching us on, it's possible that the particular platform might actually have algorithms that
you mean like Facebook?
Like Facebook.
That they would just cut the audio?
Censor us live.
Right.
It is a reason, though, there's certain videos that we don't play because of algorithms are censoring us when we play certain videos. So it's artificial intelligence. That's what we're dealing with.
We won't censor it on our website.
Now,
go there.
Rick, on that particular promo trailer that we saw for the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, you notice the contrast that they had in there. They showed the world as it exists now. We've got dumps. We got smoke coming out.
Global warming, Doc.
We got
horrible.
The world is awful and everything, but thank goodness it's not going to be too much longer that we're going to have clean water again, and we're going to have trees growing again, and there's going to be skies again. We can see skies once again.
Because they're going to reset the whole world.
They're going to reset everything. They're going to reset weather. They're going to reset everything.
Well, they're like little gods.
Well, they sure think they are, don't they?
Yeah, they're getting things ready for their god, Lucifer. And yeah, he's going to have a short run of it. I mean, that's a fact. He will run the world for a short time. He'll be released from the abyss to deceive the nations. I don't believe in this 1,000-year millennial reign. I don't even go there. There's a whole different interpretation of Revelation chapter 20. I believe that we're in the millennial reign of Christ right now, and that Lucifer will be released from the abyss before the second coming, not after Christ has ruled for 1,000 years. Why would they do that? But anyhow, Satan will be released from the abyss to deceive the nations. That is what's happening right now. If that rascal hasn't been released yet, he is standing in the wings waiting to be released. He's coming out to deceive the nations. But guess what? His rule of the world is going to be short-lived. He's not going to get away with it. Jesus said that God would cut short the days, because if he didn't, no flesh would survive. And no flesh means more than just the human race. It means animals too. So God will cut it short. He will shorten the days that Lucifer is ruling and terrorizing this planet. But I'm going to tell you, there is a great reset coming. There is a one-time reset coming. The world will never be reset again. Because, Doc, if you believe dispensationalism, they believe that there are two resets coming.
Right.
That there would be the second, well, actually three. The rapture, then the second coming, and then 1,000 years later, another reset. That's not what I read in the Bible. And I wrote a book about it.